Retirement today is very different from what it was just a few decades ago. Previous generations could actually count on a solid pension, healthcare benefits for themselves and their families, a much lower cost of living, and stronger purchasing power. Unfortunately, for the vast majority of Americans, that's no longer the case. Employers are cutting back on retirement plans. Individual healthcare costs are at the highest levels they've ever been. Economists fear the return of hyperinflation, and the stock market just wiped out $3 trillion from U.S. retirement accounts. To make things worse, while the rate of Americans that are or will be able to retire in the future keeps going down, the rate of people that expect to work their entire lives is growing at an alarming pace. The current economic downturn is preventing millions of Americans nearing retirement ages to save money for their future, with many of them having to tap into their retirement accounts to be able to make ends meet. Soon, our society will have an overabundance of people reaching their senior years without the ability to fully provide for themselves. Social Security benefits may not be around anymore, and all of these people won't have a backup plan to count on, making them vulnerable to experiencing a dramatic decline in their living standards. This crisis is getting worse over time, and the latest stock market losses are here to show us that even if you play by the rules and do everything right, you're still at risk of losing everything and see your golden years being turned into your darkest years. That's what we're going to expose today. Before moving on, please support our work with a thumbs up in this video and don't forget to subscribe. Today, we might live longer than our grandparents and great-grandparents ever did. But when you spend the most part of your life struggling with money, living longer doesn't necessarily mean living better. According to the Center for Disease Control, the average life expectancy at birth in 2020 was 77.3 years. Most of us would like to retire as early as possible. For example, if you'd like to retire at 62 years of age, you would need to have at least 15 years worth of funding saved up. However, the latest data from the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College reveals that only 46% of Americans will have enough to maintain their planned standard of living when they retire. And that means that 54% of Americans don't have enough savings to support themselves during retirement. Even more worrying, Boston College researchers reveal that most Americans aged 65 or more have made little to no progress toward financial security. They found that 80%, or 47 million households with older adults, are financially struggling today or are at risk of falling into economic insecurity as they age. Moreover, researchers noted that this trend is worsening over time, with 90% of older households experiencing decreases in income and net value of wealth over the past couple of years. These numbers are quite scary. Right now, almost 60% of Americans say saving for retirement is their top financial concern. But the study also highlighted that 56% of them don't know how much money they'll need to retire comfortably, and that most of these people base their retirement income needs on erroneous beliefs about expenses in retirement. Economists estimate that workers need to save 10 times their peak income to replace income during retirement. This means that if you start saving at age 35, you'll need to put 24% of your income aside for retirement. But those who delay saving until age 45 will have to save 44% of their income for retirement, which makes it almost impossible for them to save enough money to hang their working hats at age 65. Making matters worse is that almost half of people during peak earning and savings years are dipping into retirement accounts at exactly the time they need to be adding to them, researchers added. reporting that 46% of workers aged 40 to 49 have taken money out of retirement accounts over the past year. That's why many people will have no choice but to continue working to survive. A survey released by Northwestern Mutual found that around half of retired Americans rely on Social Security for the majority of their income. However, Social Security was never meant to provide the biggest part of a person's income during retirement. Consequently, with the program's funds rapidly drying up to support all of these retirees, future generations may never be able to benefit from it. Federal data shows that Social Security funds will run out by 2030. In 2022, the national average benefit stands at $1,564 over the next couple of years, and that sum is expected to drop to $1,367. Soon, many people that are counting on the benefits will discover that what they may receive may not be enough to live on. Workers that are retiring right now are just waking up to that fact, and a separate Boston College poll revealed that 74% of people at retirement age in 2022 plan to work during retirement, with almost half, 48% of them, planning to work part-time past the age of 70. 18% planning to work full-time past the age of 70, and 12% saying they expect to work their entire lives. By 2030, the number of workers over 55 will grow to comprise roughly 30% of the labor force, according to estimates of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. These workers will be in service sector jobs where most of the job growth will occur. Many of these jobs, such as grocery clerks, waitresses, substitute teachers, are generally held by younger people. So, on top of everything else, aging Americans have to compete with the younger generation to be able to get jobs. One of the biggest elements weighing on people's retirement plans is that, unlike past generations, seniors are now carrying more debt into their later years than ever before, which has a substantial draining effect on their savings and income as they pay interest and continue to carry and service these liabilities. An analysis by American Financing exposes that 44% of Americans aged 60 to 70 years old are currently carrying a mortgage into retirement. Over the past decade, there was a 471% increase in the debt levels carried by Americans aged 60 or more. The average debt for those aged between 56 and 74 stands at $96,945, while those aged 75 or more have a debt balance of $40,925. But analysts say that the ticking time bomb for the majority of retirees is the soaring costs of health care they'll have to face. 73% of workers retire without employer medical coverage, and at least 70% of them will need long-term care. The problem is that several estimates indicate it will cost approximately $200,000 in savings to fund out-of-pocket health care costs during retirement. It goes without saying that the most part of our population doesn't have this kind of money at their disposal. At this point, with workers facing elevated pricing pressures, higher borrowing costs, and doubts about the vitality of the U.S. economy, we're looking at a $4 trillion retirement income gap. That means 40% of Americans run the risk of running out of money completely in retirement, says Thasunda Brown Duckett, the CEO of TIAA, a company that oversees $1.2 trillion of retirement assets for healthcare systems, colleges, and nonprofits. Duckett argues that the country needs to have a real conversation about the problems prospective retirees are looking at, noting that the difficulties may be comparatively more acute than those confronted by those in the late 1970s because defined benefit plans, or pensions, were more readily available than they are now. There have always been millions of Americans at or near retirement, but one important difference is that in the late 1970s, 67% of Americans had access to a defined benefit plan, a pension. Today, that number is 23%, so that's a real difference, she said. Today, 41% of those who do have a retirement contribute to a 401k plan, which is the main channel through which most Americans are exposed to the ups and downs of the stock market. Nearly 3/4 of all 401k money is held in stocks, according to a Vanguard report from 2021. We have seen what all of this exposure did to millions of retirement accounts in 2008. Over half of American families saw their net worth plummet along with the stock market. Many of these accounts were completely wiped out. Back then, those who were burned by the stock market put their money into their homes, only to lose both the rest of their retirement savings and their homes when the housing market crashed. Now we're witnessing a repeat of that same disaster. And the fact that more people aren't talking about this is truly stunning. In the first half of 2020, the stock market sell-off literally erased over $3 trillion from U.S. retirement accounts. Alicia Monell, the director of the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College, says that by her calculations, 401k plan participants have lost about $1.4 trillion from their accounts since the end of 2021. And people with IRAs, most of which are 401k rollovers, have lost $2 trillion this year. Anybody who has to retire when the market is down is in a bad position, Monell said. Younger people wait it out. These things always come back time and time again, she warns. The people who are using their retirement money to support themselves right now are really suffering in this environment. All major indexes have entered a bear market this year. Experts say the losses we've seen so far are just the beginning. Low-income Americans are facing the highest risks due to the growing popularity of so-called target date funds, Monell explains, noting that workers with 401ks with annual incomes under $30,000 a year had 81% of their retirement funds in stocks. With the median 401k account having a balance of just $17,700, this year's market decline would lop off more than $3,500 in value. A would-be retiree with a balance of over $81,000, which would put them in the top 25% of savers, would see their nest egg shrink to just $64,800, she continued. These eye-popping figures underscore how much riskier retirement is today than for previous generations of workers, the vast majority of whom had employer-provided pensions that legally entitled them to a steady monthly payout after leaving the workforce. When the shift from defined benefit to defined contribution plans happened, that meant that the individual bore the investment risk, Monell outlines. When the stock market is booming, it's easy to forget that. But when the market tanks, you have to remember that. Now is one of those times, folks. To sum it up, we have a huge mess in our hands. The combination of longer life expectancies, less help with retirement funding, stagnant wages, a painful cost of living crisis, and a slowing global economy will not only impact the current generation of retirees, but many generations to come. That's what a perfect recipe for disaster looks like. And now that the housing market is in freefall, this crisis is set to get exponentially worse as homeowners watch the value of their properties, oftentimes their main financial asset, taking a massive hit. Americans old and young will all be impacted by this. The future of our entire nation is on the line. And when things start crumbling down all around us, nobody will have doubts that the so-called doomsayers were actually right. We are indeed in the middle of an epic economic collapse.